Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to this webinar for our ambassadors for the Princess Royal Training Awards, and a very exciting opportunity it is too. We want to go through some of the things that the ambassadors will need to do this afternoon, and obviously if you've got questions then please type them and we'll see them at the bottom corner of the screen. And if Remy's glasses are better than mine, she'll be able to read them to me later on. So it's Michael Oswald-Deston here. I've got Remy with me. And in fact, our chief assessor, Paul, I think he's going to join us in a couple of minutes. We've literally just finished doing the moderation meeting for the awards. So we've just decided which of the applications for the 2019 Princess Royal Awards will be getting the on-site visit in a few weeks' time. And that meeting ended about 30 seconds ago. So this is straight into the next one. Anyway, great you've been able to join us. Thank you for being online with us, and look forward to the opportunity to work with you during the course of the online visits. And you'll notice we're talking about online visits and not always about validation visits. We'll explain that later on, just a slight change in emphasis. So what we're going to do, we're going to tell you a bit about the awards, just to remind you. We're going to talk about the awards timetable, so you know how it all fits in and how important it is to do things within certain timescales. Remind you about the assessment process of which you are part as an ambassador. Highlight roles and responsibilities, and obviously answer as many questions as we can. So, what are the Princess Royal Training Awards? Well, hopefully you know that, because everybody's been sent a briefing document about being an ambassador, and if you're not sure what the awards are at this stage, that might be a bit worrying. They are an evidence-based awards program that recognises the impact that training and learning and development has on an organisation and their people in response to a particular demand, opportunity or need. And it's just been fascinating going through the middle 15% to see which ones of those will be receiving a visit this year and which ones won't, and why they won't be, and the sort of feedback that we'll be giving them. Because one of the things about these awards is that everybody who applies gets detailed feedback, several pages of feedback, and we know that that's valuable and is appreciated by all those who do it. So this is a Sitting Gills group working across UK PLC and beyond. These are free to enter awards. We support these as part of our responsibility as a Royal Charter organisation. You don't have to be involved with Sitting Gills Group in any way whatsoever to apply for an award, and we welcome awards from every sector, whether you're a micro business or a multinational, whether you're in any part of the United Kingdom and beyond, and regardless of size. So these awards really are about meeting a standard of excellence, and we identify that standard of excellence by the achievement of 3 hallmarks of excellence. First of all, an organisation has to show that their learning and their development is an integral part of the organisation. And those organisations can be for profit, they can be charities, they can be public sector, they can be in education, right the way across the sectors. Having demonstrated that learning and development is integral to the organisation, we then want to know about the programme that's being put forward for recognition with one of our awards. And we need to know that's been designed, delivered, it's efficient and effective, and that in the 3rd hallmark, the programme has had the impact intended, and that's an important part, impact intended, and it's impacted both on the organisation and on the organisation's people. So it's really a story. It's telling a story from, this is our sort of organisation, this is what we do, this is a challenge we had, this is how we address the challenge of opportunity, this is how we designed a programme to upskill our people, and having done that and delivered that, this is the impact that it's had on what we do as an organisation.
Just to add to what Michael's just mentioned about the 3 hallmarks, you would have seen in the briefing pack that I sent you guys sample application forms. So I sent you a sample of a successful application and another sample of an unsuccessful application. So these details would have been provided by each of those organizations, because this is what we require of them in order for them to either be successful in achieving this standard, or, depending on what information they provided. If they provided these these three hallmarks or details about these three hallmarks in the application, they would have been successful, as you saw in the case of East Coast FM, who was successful, and where the information wasn't provided efficiently or effectively, in the case of the Clink, they weren't successful, and they were advised to return again with clear indication as to which areas they needed to improve, and so on and so forth. So if you haven't already, it's really important that you have a look at those application forms that I sent you, because those are similar application or similar information that you will be seeing when you look at the applications that are going through to site visits this year. And you are required to read those applications before you actually get introduced to your assessor. So, but Michael will touch on that. So, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Remy. That gave me a chance to nip back to my desk and grab a piece of paper I'd left behind, so well talked. Yes, so moving on, these are the sorts of organisations who've achieved the standard to date, and I think there's 111 organisations with over 140 programmes have got the standard so far, which is quite impressive. And you'll see from those logos on the screen at the moment, they range from some of the really impressive organised. The Red Carnation Hotel Collection is one of the world's leading hotel groups. I mean, absolutely mega and incredibly impressive. And then you see people like East Coast, East of England Co-op, and you think, well, what they got it for? Well, actually, they did it for a brilliant piece of work in training their staff in dementia care. They realised that a significant number of their customers suffer from dementia, and sometimes people with dementia's behaviour can be a little challenging, or they forget to pay. So rather than sort of confront the individuals with dementia, they retrained their staff. So they'd recognise the symptoms, recognise the things that they could do, learn to communicate, and aid and assist people in their local communities who were suffering from dementia. It's a brilliant programme. And I think also, if we look at Macmillan Caring, that was about upskilling volunteers to allow the professionals who deliver care down in Bournemouth, Macmillan down in Bournemouth, in Christchurch, to work more effectively. Royal Bank of Scotland have won a number of awards, and very impressive ones too. Waitrose designed some rather clever bits of gaming to help their young junior managers do stock control much more effectively, and they save millions in terms of non-wasted foods because of stock control through that particular piece of training. Some really, really fascinating pieces of work going on the length and breadth of the country, and we are helping celebrate and recognise that, but also we're bringing them together. We have an alumni, and we had a session last week up at UK Fast up in Manchester, just after the Princess Royal had visited UK Fast as part of her work, since these are her awards after all. We had 40 organisations at UK Fast last week. We had alumni, we had local employers from the Manchester area, we had people who'd applied for the awards come together, and we had 3 of the alumni sharing their learnings and best practice and talking about what they'd done and the difference it had made to them and how other people could replicate it. So this isn't just getting an award and walking away, this is getting an award and becoming part of the City and Guilds group community of excellence, and that's a really important element, because over the 4 years we've now engaged with literally hundreds of employers, probably getting on towards 1,000 employers one way or another. And because of the way we try and do it, and because of the way our ethos is about delivering excellent service to them, engaging with them, supporting them through workshops, through webinars, and through a whole range of other activities, we want them to see City and Guilds Group as the go-to organisation who know their stuff when it comes to skills and who will have answers if they have questions. So this is very much part of the wider remit of the City and Guilds Group and, of course, what we do. So the timetable for these awards, and we'll come on to your roles and responsibilities in a bit more detail in a minute. Remy, tell us about the timetable. Where are we up to? How far have we got? And where are we going?
Right. Talking about the timetable. So registrations for interest for the awards generally open around the October time. so which is when the ceremony usually takes place. So as you know already, the award a year cycle. So every year is sort of a roll-on thing. So registration for interest applications open between October and November, or December even. So this is when organizations are encouraged to register their interest. They go to the website, to the Princess Royal Training Awards website, to register their interest. So they give us their email addresses, the name of their organization, contact name. So we keep this on the database in order to be able to communicate with them about what's coming next. So applications are opened in January. So applications open between January and March. So we've just literally closed the application in March, and between March and now, the assessors have been looking at all the submitted applications. I updated you guys and informed you that we had 109 applications this year. So the assessors have been really busy going through that first stage of assessment process. So this is when they read all the applications that have come in, they score them, and then they rank them. And as Michael mentioned earlier, we just had the moderation meeting this morning, and we were looking at the 15 middle borderline, mid 50% borderline applications. So 44 organizations went through to site visit automatically, and the middle 15% is what we were looking at. And what happens during the moderation meeting is we discuss the strengths of those borderline applications, why they should go through to site visit, or if it's too early for them, we encourage them to come back the next year. Or if there's a lack of evidence, then the feedback to them would be to focus on evidence and focus really owning on the areas that they're missing information on. So after today, really, we would then notify the organizations that are going through to the next stage, which is where you guys come in, because you will be accompanying the assessors on the site visit. For some of you online, you've done this before, and it's pretty easy. But this time is different because we're asking you to be a bit more involved with the process. So Michael will touch on the roles and responsibilities soon, but we want you to read those applications for the ones that you are selecting to go and visit. We want you to read those applications so that you're well prepared. When you meet the assessor who's doing the visit, you're able to then compare notes. You're able to see what the areas that you need clarification on the application, so you can compare notes. It makes the visit really, really easy for you guys. So that's what happens. Now, next week, the assessors will be contacting those organizations that are going through to arrange those visits. So they would give us details of their location they want the visit to take place, the time and the date. Visits usually last between 2 to 3 hours. So the assessor would spell out what we need to look for on the day. So the day would usually consist a presentation, 10-minute presentation, and then you get to talk to beneficiaries of the program. So depending on what the program is about, you would have had a pre-discussion with the assessor on how the visit is going to pan out. So who, the assessor would have indicated in the notification to the organization who they would like to see. So then, all that information will be presented to them. But then towards the end of mid-July is when site visits are completed. When you go on the site visit with the assessor, the report is required. You contribute to the report for the assessor. It's important to stress here that the timing, timing is important. So once you get the report from the assessor, please contribute to it and return it to them promptly, because the turnaround is quite tight. So then we announce the winners or recipients in August. And then after that, we move straight into planning and preparation for the award ceremony, which usually takes place in the autumn. and then the cycle continues again.
So just to remind you of the process, it's a very robust assessment process. It's got 4 elements to it, really. The first is the assessor team undertake that written review. The moderation then takes place, which we've done today. The on-site visits validates what's been said in the application form and also addresses some of the questions which the assessors may have and want to delve into further. And one of the rules about the on-site visit is you can look deeper into the box that's the application form, but you can't look around the outside of it. So you can delve deeply, but you can't wander around the outside. So anything that's in the application form we can follow up on, but we can't accept new evidence at that point because that would make the whole thing untenable realistically. And then the commission adjudicate and make the final decision, and that involves the Princess Royal, and it involves her accepting, hopefully, the recommendations of her commissioners, and then providing the feedback to those who don't successfully apply this year. It has to be said that a significant number of people who will be going through for the visits this year are people who've applied in previous years and been unsuccessful, and the depth of the feedback reports that we provide enables people to build better applications year on year, and we've got really quite significant evidence of that. And I think it's a really interesting thing for us to see how we can feedback and how people can take that on board and build it into better and stronger applications. One of the highest scoring applicants this year, in fact, was a failure last year, who've done some brilliant stuff putting together the evidence that they managed not to give us last year, probably because it was too soon. So quite often people apply too soon, and we'll go back and tell them that, and we'll tell them what they need to do to build the next one. So moving on, let's just look at those roles and responsibilities again. Now, if you've got in front of you the briefing document that we sent to you, you will see that on page 2 and page 3, there's a list of things that are required as part of the visit. And it's quite important, I think, to familiarize yourselves with that. Because this is an active role. The ambassador has an active role, and it's active for a number of reasons. One, you wouldn't want to just sit there like a lemon and watch the assessor doing all the work, because that would be, well, quite frankly, boring. For the assessor, your involvement is really important because it gives them a chance to have somebody to bounce ideas off beforehand and afterwards, but also give them time within the visit to reflect. So having a number of questions that you want to ask, having things that you want to explore, allows the assessor to just have a bit of brain space. And that's an important part of it, because these 3 hour visits are quite full on. Certainly the ones I've done, organisations have flown people from the far ends of the United Kingdom to meet me on assessment visits. So the companies and the organisations take these incredibly seriously. They may well roll out their chief executive. They will roll out learners. They'll roll out all sorts of people who've been involved. They'll have evidence displayed on tables. And sometimes there's an awful lot to look at. And it's great to be able to split the work up between the ambassador and the assessor to look at the sort of things, or to talk to people. I mean, one visit, 20 odd people wanted to talk about their experience on the programme. Well, you can't have one person talking to 20, but you can split those up and have them in small groups. And again, that's where the ambassador has a really useful, important, crucial role to play in support of the assessor. It's worth, I think, saying all the time that the assessor takes the lead. The assessor dictates the areas that will be looked at. They lead on the event. They're the people who are forefront in this. You as an ambassador are there to support them, to work with them, and to be their right-hand person. You know, you're their wingman on the visit, but you are a really important part of that process. In the first year, we didn't use as ambassadors throughout the visits, and I have to say that they were much harder for the assessors and much more difficult for them compared to when we've got people who are doing ambassadorial roles. So the visits take about 3 hours, but the preparation before the visit is important, and the preparation includes having a conversation with the assessor, talking about the sorts of things that you want to look at, That may be on the phone before, you may meet in Starbucks just before the visit, whatever works, and the assessor will take the lead in contacting you. It's also really important, as Remy said, to read the application form and to look at the evidence carefully to see what it's all about, because there's nothing worse than turning up on a visit not having that background knowledge and not knowing what's going on. I mean, that sends out the completely wrong message to the applicants. And we've devised the whole process so that it's a positive process from beginning to end for the applicants, whether that's in filling in the forms, and quite a lot of organisations use the 3 hallmarks as an internal criteria benchmark for their training, whether it's talking to the team here in preparation for submitting the application, attending webinars, attending workshops, having one-to-one conversations with the assessment team or with one of us. And equally, the visit, the on-site visit, has to display those qualities which we associate with the Princess Royal Training Awards. We are looking for evidence of excellence, and therefore in terms of how we deliver, it has to be excellent. So in whatever we do, whether it's our email communications, whether it's in our leaflets, or whether it's in our one-to-ones, or whether it's in the way that we undertake the visits and the validation visits and the feedback reports, it has to accommodate that concept of excellence. So you are part of the excellence that the applicants will experience. And that's an important part of it. Equally important, of course, is that you're an ambassador for the City and Guilds group. So if you work in part of the group which perhaps doesn't have as much connection with the other parts of the group, it's probably worth having a look at our own website just to get yourself comfortable with all the things that go on across the City and Guilds group. You know, do you know enough about the Oxford group? Can you explain what Digital Me does? Are you into where skills credentialing is at the moment? So just making sure when you get there that you can genuinely act as an ambassador across the group, because you may well get asked questions. And we've had some really interesting questions in the past of the group at that visit. We've also picked up some really good business. It's not, the intention is not to pick up business on the on-site visit, but obviously if somebody asks you a question and you've got the answer, that can lead to some interesting conversations afterwards. So that preparation before the visit is critical. The assessor has got to be comfortable with you, and you've got to be comfortable that you know what the assessor expects of you. Really good when you introduce yourself to the assessor, perhaps send them a short biog about yourself, exactly what you do in the City and Guilds group, you know, where do you sit in the organisation, what your responsibilities are. That helps the assessor feel more comfortable as you go about this critical piece of work in terms of the on-site validation visit. Equally, during the visit, being part of a conversation is an important part of being an ambassador. So it's not an interrogation. This isn't an inspection visit. This is a sharing of what the applicants want to tell us, want to share with us, want to present to us. And you are part of that response to that presentation, to those conversations. So we definitely don't see these as inspection visits. These are visits where we are allowed the privilege of seeing into organisations and understanding a little more about the impact that training and learning and development is having within them, to their people, and to the success of their organisation. And it is a privilege because we are allowed in to see some really detailed stuff. People often share with us very detailed financial information about their organisation. We will see into the soul of these organisations in a way which, well, frankly, you would never get a chance to do unless you're involved in something like this. And we get that because of our reputation at City and Guilds, and people know that we are an organisation of integrity. We also get it because we're there representing the Princess Royal. So whilst you're on ambassador role for City and Guilds Group, you're also there as a representative of the city of the Princess Royal and her office too. So it's quite a heavy responsibility, but one that I certainly find absolutely fascinating. And everybody who's ever been on a visit has come back and said it's fascinating and enjoyable, and they've learned so much. And like I say, seeing into organisations who are doing things differently and are doing things at a level of excellence which, you know, many organisations would aspire to, is a privilege and a pleasure too. So after the visit, it's critical to work with the assessor to make sure that when you're asked to contribute or to sense check the report they write, that you do it as quickly as possible, as Remy said, and that's fundamental, because they've literally got a matter of hours to get these things back. We have to have all this ready, and we have to have it all delivered to the palace 2 weeks before the commissioners' meeting, and the timetable is tight. And our chief assessor, Paul, really is working his socks off to make sure all this material is put together in the appropriate format to be submitted to the commissioners and to the princess. So if the assessor asks you to have a look at the report and asks you to get back within 24 hours, please get back within 24 hours, whatever the deadline is they set, because without that, they can't do their next piece of work. And it's important, and the reason we have ambassadors is because they want to sense check that their perception of what happened conforms to your perception of what happened as well. So your input at that point is really important. The assessor takes the lead throughout the whole process, but they will involve you as much as they can, and almost as much as you want to be. And it's important to work with them to facilitate that better quality assessment. So that's really good. So again, on that briefing paper we sent out, we've identified all this, we've detailed all these as bullet points, and we've given you a fairly good, I think, idea about what's expected as the ambassador working alongside the assessor during the course of the visit. So at the end of the visit, at the end of when the report's been written, that's submitted to the chief assessor. He will then compile all the paperwork for the commission, and we will then get it out and it will be put together, and it's obviously a significant piece of work, having reports on 40, 50, potentially 60 different visits in a particular format, referencing the strengths and hopefully less of the weaknesses of all those applicants, together with a significant report on the year that the chief assessor has to write and put together. So there's a lot of work between the assessment visit and the commission being asked to adjudicate, and you are part of that, and you are a very valuable part of that, and your expertise and knowledge and insights play into that in a really significant way. So moving on, we have questions. I'm just going to go back one step onto that briefing paper. We do highlight on the briefing paper why they are the Princess Royal's Awards. Princess Royal, as you know, hopefully, is our president. We have enjoyed royal patronage since the establishment of City and Guilds back in 1878. In fact, it was the Prince of Wales who chaired the commission that created City and Guilds back in 1878. Those of you who are involved in the 140th celebrations at Guildhall not long ago will know that the Princess attended that event, spoke eloquently at that event about the importance of skills, and indeed she did a visit to UK Fast up in Manchester last week, one of the recipients of the Princess Royal Training Awards last year. So it's extremely fitting. Her father, the Duke of Edinburgh, was our previous president. He was very actively involved for all his 60 years. The Princess Royal is very active. This is not just by name only. She is genuinely interested in this, and we've had some very powerful and useful conversations with her about what these awards are all about, and where do they sit and what we're achieving through them. So she's genuinely involved. So you can assure people on the visit, if they ask, why has it got Princess Royal's name in front of it, she actively supports these. She has her own ideas about them. She knows where she wants them to go. One of the things she always says is, for goodness sake, can we stop reinventing wheels? If people have done things well, can we share best practice and copy it? So she has a genuine interest in it. I think it's also true to just look at that wider context of some of the awards that we've got and some of the other things that we do across the City and Guilds group, whether it's medals, whether it's fellowship, whether it's the Prince Philip Medal or the President's Awards, and the other way that we have of recognising people. And again, just understanding a little more about the size of City and Guilds group, the 3 million people a year who access our products and services, the fact we operate in 80 countries. We are a charity, we're a royal charter body, we reinvest all our surplus back into things like the Princess Royal Training Awards, back into things like the Skills Development Fund, into our bursary programs, and of course into designing new products and services which many people across the organisation are responsible for delivering, selling and activating. And if you're asked who makes the final decision about the awards, it's the Commission. The assessor on the visit makes a recommendation to the chief assessor. The Chief Assessor makes a recommendation to the Commission makes the decision, and the Princess Royal hopefully accepts it. And I can tell you she has some quite important questions at that point. We announce them on the 15th of August, which happens to be her birthday, which is a rather good date to announce the awards on. But you can genuinely say on the visit, if they ask you, do you think they will get an award, you can genuinely say, I don't know, because it's not up to the assessor and myself, it's up to the Commission. And until the Commission meets, none of us know who's going to get an award. And even those who work incredibly closely with it can't guess what the Commission's decision is going to be. Being visited with an on-site visit is no guarantee of getting an award. And certainly a number of organisations who will be visited will not receive an award. They will get very close possibly, and we will work with them personally for the following year to ensure they perhaps step up. But having a visit is not automatically the stepping stone to getting an award. And that's quite important. If people ask you, does this mean we've got one? The answer is, I can't answer that because it's a commission who makes that decision. So, right, questions?
Yes, just something else to add. If you have any questions, please type them away. Michael and I will answer them as best as we can. The list of organizations who are going through to the site visit, I'll be sharing with you after today. Now, we recommend or we suggest that you choose the organizations you would like to go and see. Now, I can't, myself or Michael can't guarantee that you will absolutely get the ones that you select, because the location may determine whether you get to go to that visit or not, because some organizations actually choose different locations to what they put on the application form to hold the validation visit in. I think it depends on which location or which branch they can get most people to easily. And again, the day of the week will determine whether you'll be able to go to that specific visit. Also, the timing will determine, and something else that would determine is the location. Please make sure you select visits that you can easily get to, because in the past we've had instances where people have absolutely loved certain organizations and they wanted to go visit them, but the location was, quite far from where they are, and we don't want it to be
expensive.
Yeah, expensive. And we don't want you to, be traveling for absolute hours, and then by the time you get to the visit, you're tired, and then getting back home, you're getting back home late. So we want the visit to be as enjoyable as possible for you. So as you're looking at that list, please bear in mind that, bear in mind the location of the visit and the timing and stuff like that. And absolutely, don't be afraid to say, sorry, I can't do this one if you've selected it. But you need to let us know as soon as possible so that we can.
Because normally if that happens, Remy rings me up and tells me I'm going. Right, so have we got a question?
Yeah, I just need to expand this a little bit to see what the person's saying. What is that?
ESOP. Oh, hang on, it's coming up. The terrible thing I think about webinars is the box that you can read the question is so small.
This is what it looks like in this form. Where we have it. What's the logo on the right of the National Museum? Are you talking about the slide?
Yes, knit back to the slide then, Remy, and we'll have a look at the logo.
Okay, hold on. Someone else has a question. Thanks for today's session. When do we have to come back to you with our preference? Like to visit. Yeah, as I mentioned, once I share that list with you, we literally just came out of the moderation meeting to do this webinar session. So that we're still, compiling the list. There will be 50 odd organizations to go and see this year, which is absolutely incredible. So I'll share that list with you as soon as we know.
And you need to come back as soon as you can.
Yeah, please come back as soon as you can on the ones that you would like to see. But bear in mind, assessors aren't scheduling the visits until next week. So you may choose one now, and the location may be in, miles away from you, and you may not be able to do that. It's fine. You can, have a look at the list again and choose something else. But also something to bear in mind is first come, first serve. We can't guarantee that, the one you select wouldn't have been selected by someone else. So I need to figure out actually a way where to put it this year so that everyone can access it at the same time, because we've had issues with that in the past. We've always put it on OneDrive, and people have, had issues whether they've been off or, one thing or another. But look for it.
Can't see any more questions.
How many site visits do you need us to do in the time period?
2 would be good.
2 would be good per person, but again, it depends. We have over 40 odd ambassadors, so if everyone's available, 2 may not be doable. Yeah. But if not, then 2 would
actually, if you can do 2, can you point that out to Remy when you reply? Because that would be really good. Actually, the advantage of doing 2 is that although this is about reaching a standard, not comparing one with another, if you do 2, you actually get a much better feel as to what's going on, and it's quite interesting if you do a really big one and a small one. That can be quite fascinating. It's worth saying that the commissioners will also be doing site visits, and Chris Jones is doing a visit, as no doubt will 1 or 2 of the other senior leadership team, because they've realised how fascinating these are and how much you can learn from them. So that will happen.
Janine's asking if an organisation, if an organisation is one of our previous recipients, will the same ambassador have the opportunity to be assigned? If that organisation is available, not assigned yet to an ambassador, and you would like to visit them again, sure, go for it. Is there criteria that we can use to write initial comments for assessors? No, so you just read the application, you look at the criteria that they're answering to, that the organization is answering to, and then if they've met that criteria, as far as you're concerned.
There's a really important point here. You're not assessing the applications.
Yes.
That's been done by professional assessors.
Yes.
You're just looking at things that are of interest that you want to pick up on.
Yeah.
So you're not, this is not an assessment process. So please don't approach it as an assessor. That's what the assessor does.
Yeah.
But having read through it all, you'll think, oh, that's an interest. I'd like to know more about that, or I'd like to know more about that. So please don't try and reassess it. That's not the process. And it'll take you an awfully long time. And I think, it won't actually help the process.
Hope that answers your question, Jez.
We're just running through the questions on the. As you know, if you've done a webinar, you can see 1 line at a time. Whoever designed the box on the right-hand side of our screen needs to go back to designing a new one. Perfect. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay,
just go back and I'll tell you what the logo is. Just go back through the slides, Rem, and I'll tell you what the logo is. Dump more. Oh, there we are. Right. Which one? On the tree. Right. The tree. That's a very good question. I'm looking at it.
Sorry.
Go back.
I think it's still there.
No, it's not. No, it's
Isn't
not.
it?
No, because I did the National Museum of Northern Ireland. Okay. Actually, I can't remember what that is, but we will find out. That's a very good question. You get the special prize for observation. We'll send you a packet of biscuits as a prize. Who asked the question?
Michael will send you it.
I'm always sent out the biscuits.
Yeah,
right,
Michael,
we will find out what it is. Right. Well, I think time's passing, and we have no more questions. If you have a question, just drop Remy or myself an email, or give us a ring, and we'll pick it up and ask them. Thank you for some very good questions. They're really good, and we'll actually fit these questions into the face-to-face presentation that we're running tomorrow for the ambassadors.
Yeah.
Have a great time when you go out on the road on the visits. It is really good, thoroughly enjoyable. Those who've done it before know that. That's why people come back again. I love doing them. Remy loves doing them as long as she hasn't got to walk too far. We really enjoy the opportunity to go and look at other organisations and to go out and, of course, be an ambassador for the Sitting Guilds Group.
Yeah.
And being an ambassador for the Princess Royal Training Awards and representing both our organisation and the princesses is a real privilege and a pleasure. So thank you for being on the webinar today. Enjoy what you do, and any questions, come back, give us a shout. And thanks, Remy, too, for the technology.
That's
Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for your time. Bye. That's good. Couldn't Paul come in?
I think he must have got, perhaps he was still discussing something, which is possible, because Pat was there, so I don't know if this conversation was continuing. Are we off?
Yeah.
We stop. Stop recording.